gonna reminisce. I don't do that. Well, I'm doing that all the time now, but yeah, I first got involved in, well, actually, I first got involved in the pro-choice struggle at McGill when abortion was completely illegal. And a friend of mine asked me if I knew a doctor who could perform a safe abortion, and I didn't. But I made it my business, because I sort of always had this character trait, to find one. And I did, and it turned out, I didn't even know this at the time. I didn't remember that it was Dr. Morgentaler who I found and referred this woman to and become part of an underground referral service. So that was my first sort of very small contribution. And then the next one was, I came to a meeting at OISE, that Carolyn and other birth control and VD workers had called in 81, right? 80, was it 82? Okay. And you know, you'll notice everybody has aged up there except for Carolyn. She looks exactly the same. Plus she remembers everything. I don't know, Carolyn, something's wrong. You have a mirror or something in your bedroom? Okay, so anyway, so I came to this meeting, and I had been in a far left organization, and I had quit recently. In fact, the day before, I think I had quit. And I came to this meeting, and it was amazing. It was like almost this many people who turned out. And their idea was to do what Dr. Morgentaler had done in Quebec, and that is to open a clinic and to break the law and force a challenge to the law that way, through that tactic. Because Carol had been lobbying and organizing for a long time, but we hadn't made any progress. They hadn't made any progress. So I got involved, and because I had, even then, a big mouth, I got put on the coordinating committee. And it was an amazing experience. But what I'm going to talk about mostly here is Dr. Morgentaler himself. So at the beginning, we were OCAC was a coalition, and we were a broad coalition. We had big differences. You know, like for example, Carol, we thought Carol were petty bourgeois, you know, women, and they thought we were irresponsible radicals. We really didn't like each other very much. And then there were also radical feminists who were against us raising money for a man, even though that man was the one who opened the clinic and was risking going to jail. You know, that was a little hard for me to take. You know, so we had a lot of differences. I think this is important because now the media uses differences as a way to attack groups, like right now with Idle No More. And the fact of the matter is, when you're fighting to change the world, if you want to build a real broad movement, you're going to have differences. If you don't have differences, then you're too narrow. Your movement's too narrow. You're just working with the people who agree with you. So we came up with the idea that we call our slogan, we'd say we're for the legalization of freestanding clinics, because abortion was legal under restricted circumstances. And we were going to, at first Dr. Morgentaler didn't want to do it because he had gone to jail in Quebec. He had had a heart attack and almost died. He had gone through an incredible struggle there, and he could rest on his laurels knowing that he had basically been responsible for, with the support of the women's movement, for legalizing abortion in Quebec. He didn't have to do it here. And his wife at the time was against him doing it here, very strongly against. But the person he suggested didn't quite work out too well. And so I think it was you, Carolyn, convinced him, or somehow we convinced him. Huh? We got him here, yeah. And I remember the first time I met him was at a rally at OISE. And I think I was chairing the rally, and Dr. Morgentaler was speaking, and June Callwood was speaking, and I don't remember who else. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was packed. People were lined up around the block. The anti-choice tried to disrupt it. It was like wild, you know, a beginning kickoff of the campaign. And Dr. Morgentaler was so warm. That was the thing that, because I was kind of tough in those days, you know. That was the thing that Carolyn is laughing. I was really tough in those days. that was a thing that I remarked, was how warm he was. I wasn't used to that. And I didn't really know him very well at all. I had never met him before, but I really liked him. We kind of hit it off. And like a few days later, he said, "Judy, I like your energy." That's what he said to me. "Would you like to be the spokesperson for the clinic?" Honest, that's true. And that's something about Henry. He works from intuition, from his heart. As long as I've known him, he works from his heart. So he just had an idea that I would be a good spokesperson for the clinic. Now, he might have been a little sorry that he asked me, because he kept saying, "Well, you think you could be a little less radical, be a little less angry," you know, and tried to change me, with nobody who's ever really succeeded in doing. And I didn't succeed in changing him either, so we were both very stubborn. But he had that intuitive ability, and I think that was part of what people saw in him. Because one of the things I want to say about the struggle, and I know Carolyn's going to go into the building of the movement, and there's no question that without the breadth of movement that we built, without, I'm sure, how many people here were on a demonstration during the 80s, a pro-choice demonstration? Yes. And how many were part of the escort service? Up there, okay, yeah, yeah. So without that movement, we wouldn't have won, because, you know, the Supreme Court would not have come to that decision strictly for legal reasons. I don't believe that. I believe it was because of the atmosphere, the pro-choice majority that was created, and the way in which the arguments affected the justices as well as the population. But I think it's important to understand Dr. Morgentaler. We know him as a hero. How much people saw him as a hero? Like, even people that maybe didn't have a strong position on choice, they saw him as the little guy against the system. You know, and wherever I went, people would give me money for him. Like, I'd be on the subway and people say, and they used to call me, "You're the girl from the clinic, aren't you?" That's what they used to say, right? I even had, one time I was riding my bike and there was guys in a big truck, and they said, "You're the girl from the clinic." They yelled out the window, you know? And they said, "Here, give Dr. Morgentaler money for us." And this happened everywhere. And anytime you go out for dinner or for lunch with him, the staff would pay for the bill. He is a true Canadian hero. And the day the decision came down, I'll never forget this. I mean, I was standing in front of the clinic. I didn't go to Ottawa. I think Norma and Carolyn went to Ottawa. And it was amazing, because we thought we might win at the Supreme Court level. It wasn't that we didn't think we would, but we thought we'd win on a technicality, equal access to abortion across the country. But we really won on a point of principle, which was a woman's, they call it, the charter right was the right to privacy. But it was our basic argument. It was a woman's right to control her own body. And outside the clinic that day, a reporter whispered to me and said, and you know, the media was a lot on our side on this struggle, I have to say. And she whispered to me and said, "Judy, the Supreme Court decision's come down and it's on the right to privacy." And I didn't believe her, you know. We had arranged for Carolyn to call the clinic and them to let us know, and we hadn't heard yet, so I didn't tell anybody. But when I heard it through the right channels, and we heard it, I don't think I've ever felt such joy as I did at that moment. Never felt such joy. Because this battle was an incredible, hard-fought, hard-won battle. It was certainly, for me, the most extraordinary political experience I ever had. Both working with Dr. Morgentaler, and I want to say a few more things about Henry, because, you know, one of the stories I told it the other night was that 3/4 of the way through the battle, I think it was just after the Court of Appeals decision, Morris Manning, who was Henry's lawyer, very good lawyer, defended a strikebreaker in Hamilton. And we had worked very closely with the labor movement, and Ken Lewens, who's the president of the CAW, was here, and Michael Lewis, who was active in in the steel workers for many, many years. We had won a support from the labor movement through a battle in the OFL. And people from the labor movement were down at the picket line defending the clinic, helping to escort women through the anti-choice picket line. There were tremendous support from the labor movement, just tremendous. So we, Carolyn and I, we were really pissed off at Morris, not Henry, at Morris. And so we decided we were going to I was going to go up to Montreal with 2 women labor leaders and try and convince Henry to fire Morris. And we had a big argument, which, by the way, wasn't our first. And Henry said, Henry's argument was, lawyers, they're hired hands, they do whoever pays them, they do it, it doesn't matter, he's a great lawyer, he can win the case, I'm not sure, we can't change horses in midstream. All very good arguments, although I wasn't really listening. And, and I said, yes, but we built this alliance with the labor movement, and and also the labor women were there, and we could lose it over this, and blah, blah, blah. But then I said something which it's not many things in my life I regret saying, which is I said, when he made that argument about the lawyers, I said, well, what about James Keestra? You wouldn't feel that way if it was him, and he was a neo-Nazi lawyer. And I said, well, that's how I feel about this, because for me it's a principle, the right to strike. And the 2 labor women that were with me were horrified that I said that. And Henry asked to speak to me privately. And when he did, we went down to have a drink in the bar. He said, Judy, I know that you're arguing this for the good of the movement. And I hope you realize that I'm taking my position for the good of the movement too. And what's important is that we maintain our friendship. And for me, that was such a deep lesson in what is important. And today is also the day of action for Idle No More. And one of the things our Indigenous brothers and sisters teach us is it's all about relationships. That what we're building, this battle for social justice is all about treating each other with kindness and equality, compassion and empathy. And Dr. Morgentaler, his heroism was amazing, but mostly it's his heart and his compassion and the way in which he's such a caring, loving person. And I believe that was the quality, as well as his courage, that the people of Canada reacted to, and that was a big reason that we won our struggle. Thank you.